Welcome to Golf and the Good Life, your guide to golf travel across the pond. I'm DJ Jones, joined by my friend and colleague Connor Evers. Connor, it is great to be back after a couple pretty busy weeks for the two of us on the old golf travel front.
Yeah, absolutely, DJ. Great to be with you today. That's definitely for sure. A few weeks ago, we had the PGA show in Orlando, Florida. It was great being back at the show. We were there the previous year, and I would call it more or less a dud of a PGA show. There weren't too many people there, just because we were still coming out of COVID, and a lot of the bigger vendors like Titleist and TaylorMade and a few others were not there, but more vendors were there, and more people were there, and it felt like it was the PGA show 5 years ago. So it was great. And we had our captain's reception Wednesday night. Every year we have that as well. So that was great seeing our partners from across the pond and all of the PGA professionals that have traveled with us in the past and traveling with us this year in 23 and potentially for years to come as well. And meeting with, again, other PGA professionals and just looking to book travel for the other year. So it was overall a very successful PGA merchandise show. And you were also across the pond, DJ, in St. Andrews, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the show wrapped up on Friday. I basically went home and packed a bag and then got on a plane Saturday morning to St. Andrews for Scottish Golf Tourism Week. We've attended the event every year. It's a great event. They held it at the Fairmont in St. Andrews, which was my first time actually staying there. It's a little different experience than my normal trips to St. Andrews. It's a little further removed from town, but a great property, great event overall. We actually had a couple days before the convention where I was in St. Andrews, kind of just hitting all the stops, if you will, and stayed at the Rusacks, had a phenomenal dinner up on the roof at 18. Thanks to Seamus and the team for their hospitality. It's just going from strength to strength, as they say, there at the Rusacks. But yeah, so great time in St. Andrews, and great to be back talking about a topic today that in the scope of planning a trip is often one of the overlooked aspects of the planning process, and yet it is the one thing that can make or break your trip, and that is transportation.
DJ, this is a great topic and one of those key main factors that goes into planning a trip across the pond. And today we're mostly going to talk about, the pros, if you will, of hiring a driver host. And again, kind of everything that goes into it from when you arrive in the country and then and to the point in time when you depart. So I'm just kind of looking forward to talking about that today.
Yeah, there are a lot of benefits and a lot of reasons to consider hiring a driver host, and there are certainly some advantages to going the self-drive route. We have plenty of folks who do that every year, but the vast majority of our travelers will opt to hire a driver host. They would just rather, sit back, enjoy the ride, let a local show them around the country. But the benefits, there can be some of them are smaller than others. There's a couple really big ones, but starting with some of the small guys, it might be a little cliche to say, but number one has to be that they're accustomed to the left lane. It can be a stressful experience driving on the left side of the road, especially if you've never done it before. Navigating all the roundabouts, navigating the windy, narrow streets. It's not exactly I-75 out there in terms of the roads across the pond. So having a pro just take all of that stress off your back is just one less thing to think about during the trip.
Yeah, for sure. And as we've talked about in the past episodes, DJ and I were just in Northwest Ireland, and this is the first time that when I was over that I drove myself. And yeah, you can do it, but it is a little bit more nerve wracking. And I think it's one of those things where you don't really think of it, but the night before and the flight over from New York to Dublin for myself, and I was definitely definitely thinking about it because it is different. How are the roads going to be? And really when you are self-driving, you don't really need to take any driving tests or anything. I mean, when I rented my vehicle, I just gave them my state issued United States driver's license, and they give you a key to a foreign car, and you're off and running. So it is a little bit more different and nerve wracking. And again, hiring a driver host that is from Ireland or Scotland or wherever, they've grown up driving on the opposite side of the road, and they know that. And it again, I've talked about this multiple times in other podcasts, but it makes this seem more seamless and more or less vacation rather than work. And that's what's kind of the biggest key factor in that is you don't have to worry about it. You can sit back, relax, I think another thing too is when I self drove, it is a little bit more different again on the other side of the road, but going through multiple roundabouts, that's a big thing that people don't understand is there's not really too many stoplights and stop signs in Ireland or Scotland. It's a lot of roundabouts. So that takes a little bit more time going through, obviously not used to it. So, there's could be potentials that, with self-driving, you may be late to tee times. So, again, those driver hosts, they're used to it. Going through those, it can get you to those tee times on time.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, yes, you will get used to it as the trip goes. It takes a couple days, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, for you to kind of get the hang of it and, be relaxed. When I start out driving on the left side, I am a nervous wreck. I mean, no matter how many times I've
Yep.
done it. By day 2 or 3, I've got the sunroof open and the music going, and I'm enjoying the ride, and I'm intentionally getting lost at times. But it's one of those things, though, that never really goes away during your trip. You are continuously thinking about, okay, we've just finished our round of golf. We've got an hour and a half to our next hotel or what have you. And
Mm-hmm.
you're just constantly thinking about the
Correct.
logistics. And you don't need to be doing that. Your time is so much better spent in the pub, in the 19th hole, having a pint, enjoying the post round camaraderie as opposed to thinking about your next drive. But that actually kind of ties into another benefit of hiring a driver host, and that is that they're always your designated driver. The laws across the pond are a little more strict than we're accustomed to here. In both the Scotland and the Republic of Ireland, it's 0.05 is the legal limit, and that's less than a pint for most men, and you're already across the number, and it's just not worth the stress of having to, decide, okay, who draws the short straw today. Nobody wants to be the odd person out at the Guinness Storehouse or the Harbor Bar or wherever. Um, and so you just hand that responsibility off to the driver host and just go have a good time. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely don't want to be the one person out and not enjoying the crack, as they like to say. With amongst the group, you definitely want to enjoy yourself. And you said it perfectly, DJ. You don't want to worry about it when you're on the 15th or 16th hole and you've got to drive an hour and a half to your next hotel. That's the last thing you want to worry about. You just want to enjoy your round and enjoy the trip overall. But I think the other kind of benefit of this is they're the life of the party. They're again the name of that person's in the name of their title, and it's a driver host. They're going to host your group. They're going to figure out what you want. Is it someone that is going to want to talk on the microphone on the coach and say, hey, this is some history of this town that we're driving through, or history of this town that we're driving through. Again, they act as a host, and continually every year when we read surveys from our groups, a lot of times they won't even mention the golf or the awesome lodging or amazing 5-star restaurants that they ate at. They're talking about the driver host and how this person dealt with this situation that came up, because there is international travel and there's things that go along with it. But again, it's kind of funny how, and you're obviously going on this trip to play golf across the pond and have a great time, and it's your intentions of why you go on this trip. But a lot of those surveys that come back are all about the driver host and how they accustom themselves immediately to the group. Again, if they want more touring, if it's more just simply golf, etc., they kind of react and kind of incline themselves to the group. So I think that's the biggest factor of that as well. And they're an extra member of your group. So if your group of 8, it turns into 9. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that is, like you said, every other survey that we receive throughout the travel season comes back with our driver host was phenomenal. He became part of the group. We hope to have him on our next trip. And that really kind of links up with one of the two big reasons to hire a driver host, and that is that they're basically Jack of all trades is kind of a catch-all phrase, but it applies. They are your concierge, your tour guide, your shoulder to cry on after a bad round. They're your designated driver. They're your porter for your luggage and your clubs. They are gonna do everything for you, whether it's dining reservations, sightseeing. If you want to stop at a distillery, they're gonna know the place, and you just can't put a dollar value on the value that that brings to your trip. And I really think the best way to kind of tie all this together is actually to hear it from two of our driver hosts firsthand. So we sat down at the PGA show with John Daly and Gordon Donaldson. John Daly is works with O'Callaghan Coaches in Ireland for us, and Gordon Donaldson runs St. Andrews Executive Travel. We're going to start with John, and then Gordon will come next. And I think that by the end, you'll have a pretty good indication of just what it is they do on a daily basis.
If you're hiring a driver, I would recommend booking in plenty time, not leaving it till maybe a month or 3 weeks until you're going to your destination, because you will not get them. You'd want to be booking, 12 months in advance. The first way to look at it is you won't get lost. You won't be late for a tea time. He can advise you on dinner reservations. And apart from that, if you're driving yourself, you don't know what to do or what to see after golf, whereas your driver would be able to give you several different options that you could do on the day. Making the most of their time, if they want to do some sightseeing after golf or before golf, they have to let me know the day before, so I can work the schedule to suit within the driving hours. The driving hours aren't the big concern as such. It's the nightly rest that we have to get. Not that we need it, but it's European law, and we have to be off the road for so many hours a night. So if they want to do something the following day, and it's feasible to do it, I will do it. If you run into a problem and you have a driver, they're local to the area, they'll be able to sort it out. The biggest problem you have is losing luggage or losing golf clubs when they don't arrive at the airport. Trying to chase them can be a pain. Lots of times, if you're staying close to the airport, it's okay. If it's a thing that the guys are golfing locally in the morning, I can go to the airport while they're golfing. Most of the times it works out. You'll get back to the course, the guys will be coming into the turn, and I would give him his clubs to play the back nine. And to see the look in their faces is priceless.
The first thing we look for in new drivers is their ability to communicate, be able to chat to all different kinds of people. For some groups, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. For others, they're over every year. And you've got to be able to communicate with these guys. You've got to listen. Listen to what the people are saying in the back of the bus. They may want to go to a distillery, but no one's told us. So if you're listening, you're analysing then where you can fit in a distillery with the least disruption to the tour. But it may well be that someone says, my great-granddad worked at Glenkinchie Distillery. So if that happens and they're in the Muirfield area, the driver would obviously without saying anything, would make the effort to go to Glenkinchie so this man could see where his grandfather worked. And that has happened on a number of occasions. But there's also serious things that happen. We one time had a lady who left all her medication back in the US, and it was serious medication that could really result in her perhaps even passing away. And the driver just said, look, you go and play your golf, give me a list of your medications, give me proof of who you are, I will go and sort this out. And that involved the driver going firstly to a local doctor, finding out exactly what he had to do, going to a pharmacy and even going to a hospital. At the same time, he was arranging with the lady's relations back in the US to get all the correct medicine sent across by courier, and that arrived 4 days later, but she didn't miss a day of meds. that kind of thing would take over your trip if you were in a self-drive car, whereas they were able to go out, play Kingsbarns, and not worry about what was happening at all.
Fantastic. That was some great knowledge from Gordon and John, and both two gents that help us and serve our members quite well each and every year. But I agree. I mean, they're there to make this trip a great experience for you. And for example, if you're staying at Nesswalk, for example, in Inverness, and playing Brora, for example, and maybe it's not on your itinerary, but you want to stop and go to a distillery, great. You can go to the distillery right in Brora, which is great. And again, maybe it might not be on your itinerary that Jen Eccles, our concierge, may do, but it's something that they can add that again creates value with having a driver host. And sometimes you may not even know these little nuanced places if you are self-driving. So again, just something else to add to there. And Gordon kind of mentioned that about the lady there with against stuff happens when you're across the pond, and they're the people that really kind of get your trip back going if something does happen. And for example, I mean, we DJ and I have plenty of stories that of things have happened over the years, and again, most of the time everything works out, rest assured. But sometimes things do happen with luggage and what have you. This is an international trip, so just for example, from last year, we had a group and they were going to the Southport, England area. And it was a group of 8 gents, and one of them was flying from Atlanta, Georgia to Manchester. And the flight actually from Manchester to Atlanta had a medical emergency across the pond and had to turn back. So unfortunately, he had to fly into London Heathrow instead. And I was helping him make his journey from the London Heathrow airport through the tube and through the Northern Line all the way up to Manchester to get him up there. And they were playing arrival day golf. What happened was that gent was able to be picked up from the driver and was able to get to the golf course. I believe he missed the first or second holes. I can't remember. It was only a couple, but he actually did ship his clubs beforehand. And when this was all happening, I was working with the driver, and the driver was able to go to the hotel, grab his clubs, literally took them out of the travel luggage and put his clubs out on the golf course. And caddy took them, and I'm pretty sure he teed off the third hole. So, that's something that probably would not have happened if they were self-driving. He would have had to do a few other things to work it out. And more than likely would have missed that first round of golf. But again, the help of us as H&B, and especially the driver host on the ground, made that come together. And he was definitely appreciative of that. So again, just one story of many of why it's important to have a driver host. Again, not only just driving on the left side of the road, but to ensure that you can get back on the routes of the trip.
100%. I mean, Gordon said it best. I mean, stuff like that has the ability to take over your trip. I mean, that story that Gordon told with the medication, that would absolutely take over a trip. Not in an effort to harp too much on these guys are here to make sure that anything that goes wrong gets fixed. That's just one part of it. But it can be a very big part of it if something does go awry. The majority of the time, everything goes as planned. But to have that pro in your back pocket to get your trip back in the fairway is absolutely priceless. So now let's talk a little about how it works. The tendency is to think, well, I've hired this driver host, and so they're at my disposal 24/7. And that's not exactly the case. It's important to remember, as John noted, that they are subject to rules and regulations in terms of how much rest they can have and so forth. But by and large, that your driver host is going to be at your disposal for roughly 8 hours a day from the minute they fire up the coach the first time that day. And yes, the time does keep running while you're on the golf course. So it's important to have an open communication with your driver host. Talk about the next day's events, figure out what the best plan is as far as wheels up, or maybe you need to have breakfast in the hotel as opposed to at the golf course to maximize how much time they have available. Your driver host is going to talk through those things with you, but they are there to make sure you get the most of that time. You're just going to need to have an open dialogue and not assume, if you will, that, well, they're going to be at my beck and call whenever I need them. They've got to work around their own constraints, but they're going to do everything they can to make the most of that time.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, DJ. And I always like to give the example, and it's just one of the things to work out. It's so say, for example, you're staying in the town of St. Andrews and you're playing Kings Barnes. Kings Barnes is approximately a 15-minute drive from the town, and just again, easy math. You're going to want to warm up and hang out there for 45 minutes before your round. So with the drive and your kind of warm up time, that's an hour. Just say a round of golf, again, easy math is 4 hours. That's 5. So, you got a 15-minute drive back. So, you've got approximately 3 hours with that driver. So if you want to do some touring or stuff, you can put it in there too. So it's just one of those things that us as H&B as a company, for our groups, we have to logistically frame. Again, if you're at the pub and want a ride back at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m., it's probably not going to work if you're playing golf during that day. So again, they're not at your beck and call. It's just one of those things that everyone needs to kind of consider when having a driver host. And Gordon said it perfectly. If it's your one and only trip to St. Andrews or Ireland, or if it's something that you're going every year on, they want you to have an unbelievable experience. And again, act as a host. They want you to see their country and see their city and see their town and go to the pubs that they're at. So it's all about communication and what you want out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gordon said it best. The drivers, they do their best to listen and pick up on the cues and so forth. But the more information you can arm your driver host with, the better your experience and the better they're going to be able to serve you and the group. And so yeah, if there's a particular distillery, or if you want to play some extra golf and you're looking for a recommendation, ask the question. Um, don't assume that they know, the group's preferences and so forth, because every trip is different. Every trip that H&B plans is completely custom. And we do it that way for a reason, because the trip in the end is yours and your driver host is there to do the exact same thing. So the other key question relates to cost. A lot of times we're asked, well, what's the difference in terms of self-drive versus a driver host? And if it's just two of you out on a trip, the difference between the two will be somewhat significant, or at least measurable. We do still have plenty of groups of two that hire a driver host, and it's just the three of them on the open road throughout their trip. But usually, once you get to the magic number of 8 in terms of travelers, the cost difference is minimal, if any. I mean, because otherwise, you're talking, if there's 8 of you, you're talking 2 rental vehicles and all of that stress that we talked about earlier in the episode. But once you get to 8, that difference is minimal, but the value that gets added to your trip is just can't be touched.
Yeah, you said it perfectly there. And you're definitely right. If you've got 8 golfers and you're going to want to self-drive, I mean, you're going to need two vans, call them MPVs. So if you will, like minivans, if you will. And again, that stress we just talked about is now over 2 people out of the 8 people, because you have to have 2 drivers with 2 vans. I get it if it's 2 people, because again, those coaching costs are divided by the people in the group. And the biggest thing, I mean, I'm working with a member of ours right now, and it's him and his son, and they're doing a trip to the Dublin area as well as Northern Ireland, and they're kind of back and forth right now between hiring a driver host and also renting. They've rented before, but they're going to stay in Belfast as well as Dublin. And again, just an example here is, if you are self-driving, there's a couple other things that go into that. And that's parking as well as paying for, we call it gas, but petrol over there. So, sometimes parking can be 30 and 50 pounds or euros if you're valeting it or having the hotel take care of it. So that's adds up. And, petrol and stuff, that's sometimes double and triple the cost compared to what we have here stateside. A lot of times when you add up some of those parking fees and the petrol and stuff and put it all in a factor, even if you're a group of 2, a lot of times it just the opportunity cost, if you will, favors more hiring a driver host rather than self-driving. So
Yeah, I mean, it is really funny, the things that you take for granted that once you're over there, on a self-drive setup, that all of a sudden become an issue. I pulled off at a gas station, I don't know, somewhere in Northwest Ireland. I don't know where I was, but and of course the tank is on the other side of the car as it is to me, so I had to like turn the car around,
Yep.
and then I get out and this guy just comes wandering over. Hey, how much gas do you want? Well, how much
Mm,
petrol do you want?
yeah.
I don't know. I First off, who are you? It turns out it's a full service station. I didn't know those were still a thing, but they are over there. And number two, he's like, "Well, how much do you need?" I'm like, "I have no idea. It's in liters. I don't know what that means in compared to gallons."
Right.
So it's just funny. All of the things that that end, like you said, that do in the end add up to, was this really worth it? And there are certainly some advantage to a self-drive trip, not the least of which is the fact that it's just you and the open road, and you are limited only by your imagination and time in terms of how much you want to drive and go explore the countries. And I've done plenty of exploring, but we're going to cover all of that in the next episode, or a future episode, I should say. It may not be the very next one, but it will come around, because there are some benefits, and I think it's only right that we cover it. But as far as driver hosts, have we checked all the boxes, Connor?
I think we have, DJ. I think we've talked about, again, pros and cons of both. And again, DJ and I are definitely more on the pro side of things when it comes to this. Again, it just relieves a lot of stress. And I like to say it's this person is insurance for you, right? I mean, again, DJ said it perfectly. It gets you back in the fairways, literally at times. So it's an insurance standpoint when it comes to your investment of this trip of just hiring this person and just a coach as well. So, but yeah, I think we hit it all. This has been great, DJ.
Fantastic. Well, great to be back with you, Connor. Thank you to everyone out there who tuned in. If you have any questions, feel free to send them our way. You can DM us on social media or shoot us an email at golf@haversham.com. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with you soon, and we wish you plenty of golf at its finest and life at its best.